Hey folks, in this interview, it's all about living among what's left behind with Mario Cruz. This is TWIP. Hey folks, welcome back to This Week in Photo. I am your host, Frederick Van Johnson. Today on the show, I have Mario Cruz. He's a Lisbon-based photographer. It's in Portugal. He does photojournalism and some other things that we're going to learn about during this interview. But Mario is on Skype and has agreed to join us to chat through kind of what his origin story is, what led him to this project, living among what's left behind, as well as what's in the future for him. So Mario, welcome to the show, man. How are you doing?
Thank you. Thank you so much. Glad to talk to you about this.
Yeah, this is exciting. This is really cool. So first of all, congratulations on the project. That's
thank you. Thank you so much.
We've as you know, there's a written component to this piece that's published on the Fullblographer. Yeah. And looking at that piece and talking with some other people offline, the consensus is you have some sort of magic way of getting emotion into your images. So I'm going to talk about that a little bit. What is that magic that you put in there?
I mean, I'm always interested in human parts. Of course, this specific project, it's a project about the environment. It's about a very polluted river in the Philippines. But my main goal is always on the human side. So I guess it doesn't matter where I am or what I'm covering. For me, it's the human impact. That's what drives me. And so that's why I'm keeping trying to document human stories about human rights issues or social injustice. I mean, I think it's really important to photography to be where the evidence is. I think we as a photographers or photojournalists have that duty. So I truly believe in the power of photography in bringing that evidence up.
Yeah, and it's kind of like the human element versus just the straight documentary version where you're photographing a polluted river in the Philippines. Instead of just showing the pollution, you're showing the impact of that pollution on the population that's surrounding it, right?
Yeah, that's really important to me. And when I discovered the Pasig River, I understood that the human side was being ignored for many years. So sometimes when we talk about these kind of issues, we tend just to see the images of, let's say, a polluted river or a rainforest in a very bad shape right now or something like that. But we don't see the consequences, the human side, what's behind it. So when I was trying to organize this project, I was trying to understand the impact on the lives of those who live next to the river. And actually, it's a very sad story, this one, because we can see that the problem is the solution. So the problem, of course, is the pollution in the river, but for many families is the solution because they survive from what they can find in the river. So it's a very sad situation.
Oh, wow. So they've learned to use the disaster, which is that pollution, and sort of thrive on it. And if it were to get cleaned up and go away, then they'd have to make adjustments and figure out how to survive, right?
Yeah. And I mean, this is been like that for many years. I mean, one thing that I realized while I was there is that I was photographing many children, of course, but the parents of them were already born in those circumstances. So they were already born in that kind of environment. So everything they have comes directly from the river. So even the houses that they have, they build from materials that they found in the river.
Wow.
So yeah, I mean, so when I discovered the Pasig River, I thought that it was a perfect example to show what's happening when the human basic needs and the environment are ignored.
And how did you come upon the river itself and then sort of get that spark of inspiration to cover it as a photojournalist?
Yeah, I started to read some articles about waves of trash that were coming into people's houses in Manila, and So I tried to know more about it, and soon I was discovering the reality of Pasig River. So the river was considered biologically dead in the 90s, and but only after that the Filipino government decided to do something. But what they have done, it's very symbolic, because they created a commission to rehabilitate the river, but they only do cleanup operations. So imagine if you clean up a part of the beach or a part of the river, if you come back 24 hours later, it's already full of trash.
Yeah.
So it's a very, I mean, it's almost impossible to solve the problem like that. So, but actually, one thing that really makes me sad is to understand that all that is already acceptable by the Filipino society. So if you go to Manila now, Frederick, you'll be, of course, devastated, but by what you see. I mean, it's possible to walk on top of the trash that is floating in the river.
Wow.
It's just crazy.
You can walk on it. It's that thick.
Yeah, you can walk on it. Yeah. Many of the children spend their days walking in that trash, trying to find some recyclable materials to sell it, of course, and to have some money. And we are talking about families that can live with $30 every month.
Yeah.
So it's very, very difficult for them. But that's just, it's just a small part of the problem. Imagine, for example, these children go to the river when they have 3 or 4 years old. So they start like that. And when they got to, let's say, 16 or 17 years old, they start showing some symptoms of the diseases that will follow them for the rest of their lives. So, for example, I've met Nolito. Nolito had, by that time, 18 years old, and he was in really bad shape. He had his lungs very obstructed, and the treatment cost $300 every month. So his family had to sell almost everything in their house, even the floor. But the saddest part is that after the treatment is completed, he needs to go to the river again.
Wow.
So
back to the scene of the crime, right?
Yeah, exactly. And if you go to the Pasig River, you can see this all the time every day. And the problem is that it's not concentrated in just one area. It's all over the city, because the river runs throughout the city. So it's really complicated situation right now.
Wow. So, I mean, being so close to it, is there a ray of sunshine in there? Do you see a path to getting that river cleaned up, or is this just the way that it's going to be, and while humans are on the planet?
I mean, I think that the only solution is to relocate all those families and the communities. I mean, it's a very hard task to do it. We are talking about millions of people, and but we need to start someday. So it's better to do it quickly. I mean, the government tried to do that in the small. I mean, let me explain one part that is really important.
Sure.
The communities are mainly concentrated in the esteros. Esteros are the estuaries. These areas were built to stop the floods in Manila. But because of their location right in the center of Manila, many people decided to build their houses in those locations. So what's happening now in Manila is that those locations are just overcrowded. So the houses are not even houses; they are just structures of wooden, craved in very polluted waters. So it's like a maze, And these locations are spread all over the city. So it's very difficult to convince. I mean, I don't know. Sometimes the stores can have 50,000 people in them. So you have to convince 50,000 people to move outside Manila. And we need to understand that these people came from the interior of the country to go to Manila to have jobs. So it's hard to understand, but they prefer to live like that instead of coming back and not have any opportunity.
Yeah.
But to be honest, I think that they will have a better life in the interior of the country, because many of that people don't have a single job. Many of the children don't go to school. I mean, they don't have electricity. They don't have clean water. They don't have anything really. So the problem was that this situation was ignored for too long, you know. Yeah. And now we have millions of people in this situation. And I mean, I don't see a solution right away, because the Filipino government don't seem to see the river and these communities as a priority.
Wow. Well, so then, you know, right now as we record this, it is Friday, March 13th here in the United States. And you know, as you know, we talked a little bit about this before we started recording. The world is worried about this, you know, COVID-19 virus and transmission and all that. How do you see that kind of, you know, the paranoia in first world countries is palpable, right? In third world countries, in poverty-stricken areas without access to the healthcare that we, you know, have in first and second world countries, how do you, from your being on the ground near this river, how do you think that's going to affect the millions of people there when, if the virus hasn't already reached them, when it hits down there?
I mean, I don't even want to imagine that. I mean, they have so many problems already. For example, many of the kids get immune to many of the things because they suffered so many times from the same problems. They get immune to that. But actually, now with the coronavirus, something like the coronavirus in that kind of communities, it's a completely tragedy. They don't have any medical center or any medical support. I saw many people with tuberculosis living by themselves, waiting for the death in Manila. So I prefer not to imagine what could happen if that hits them so strongly as we can see in Italy or in China or many other countries. So, I mean, they suffered enough. So I just hope that the communities that are living next to the Pasig River at least have some sanitation, because they don't even have that. They never had a bathroom in their lives.
Wow.
So the river became the sewer of the city. I mean, it's just actually when I was photographing this project, I realized that I was photographing what many times is described as a dark scenario for the future in terms of environment. If nothing is done and if we don't stop with our plastic industry and so on. And but actually, it's the present. It's happening. It's happening right now. And actually, it's a past for millions of families in Manila. And we need to stop thinking that it's a local problem, because the plastic that we are seeing in Pasig River goes to the ocean every year. You know, that is more than 60,000 tons of plastic that comes from Pasig River to the ocean every year. So it's 60,000. Yeah, every year, 60,000 tons. It's a lot.
Wow.
And so not is the Pasig River is one of the most polluted river, but it is also one of the most rivers responsible for the plastic in our ocean. So, I mean, it's not local; it's global, and it's not in the distant future. It's right now. So we need to. Yeah, it's happening.
It's not fiction. It's not science fiction. It's not some dystopian movie of what could happen if things go wrong. Things have gone wrong, and you know, now I think now people are starting to wake up to it.
For sure.
So let's switch gears and go back in time to the beginning of your photographic career. What sparked you to want to pick up a camera and start telling stories with a camera?
Well, my father was a photographer, so I had a camera all around me since I can remember. But to be honest, photography did get my attention right away. I mean, only when I was 16, I started looking to photography in a different way. I started using photography to express myself. So I was born in Lisbon, in Portugal. I studied in Lisbon Center, but I lived in the suburbs. So what I was seeing in the center, in the place that I was studying, it was completely different from the suburbs. And I started paying attention to newspapers, and I was not seeing many of the things that I was seeing next to my house. And suddenly I discovered one thing called Magnum photos. And
the stock agency,
yeah. So I was really inspired by many of the photographers, but actually one of the photographers that really inspired me was James Nahui, and his work really taught me in a way that it's difficult to explain even today. But I understood that photography had a very unique power to create dialogue and to raise awareness to many of the subjects that I was thinking about back then.
Yeah.
So I decided to study photojournalism. So it was clear to me that was the path that I wanted to follow. And after a while, I got an internship in a news agency, which is the Portuguese news agency. It's called Lusa. I still work there. But after a while, I lost my way in photography. So I started to do my own projects, because what drives me is truly storytelling. It's truly documentary photography. And I started to do my own projects. So I started to use my free time in the best way possible. So I tried to do my own projects related to human rights issues. I started in Portugal to get more comfortable, to get more experience, and then I moved on, and then I've been to Senegal and to the Philippines and other places. And I realized that actually photography has a really important role when it comes to capture the evidence. That's it. That's what drives me the most, I think.
Yeah, capturing the audience and telling stories, right? So in having taken that tack with your photography, sort of shedding light on environmental issues and other things that affect the planet and humans living on the planet. What would you say is your, so far has been your sort of most transformative project, both externally, to, the effect of the project itself, and internally the effect of the project on Mario?
Yeah, it's very easy to me to point that out. It was the Talibés story. The Talibés, the project is called the Talibés Modern Day Slaves. It's about children that are slaves of false Quranic teachers in Senegal. And it was a story that changed me in many ways, because I never thought that I would see something like that in my life. I saw children being whipped in front of me, being beaten in front of me, shackled by their ankles. And actually it was a story that had a very good result in the end. I don't want to get into too much details of the story because it's a very dramatic story.
Yeah.
And we are talking about more than 50,000 children that are imprisoned in false Quranic schools, and they have to beg all day for these supposed Quranic teachers. And if they don't come back at the end of the day with the money, they get punished. They get beaten, they get raped, they get killed. So we are talking about children between 5 and 15 years old. So when I discovered this story, I discovered also that was missing. It was precisely the evidence, the proof. So I talked with a lot of NGOs that were trying to get that evidence for many years. and I get lucky, I guess, and I tried the best I could to capture the evidence, and I did it. And after winning the World Press Photo in 2016 with that story, many children were rescued. And
wow.
yeah, and
it's priceless. That is just simply priceless. 100%, right?
Yeah, and yeah, I mean, I never thought that I could achieve that kind of result with my work, but and it was remarkable because I worked with so many people. It was truly a teamwork, and we did a book that is present in all schools across Senegal in Guinea-Bissau to prevent more children to get caught in these children trafficking networks. And so far, more than 2,000 children were rescued. And I mean, it's a long way to go. But for example, we still have an exhibition is traveling across Guinea-Bissau to show what's happening, and that exhibition will never stop until the problem is solved. Yeah, I mean, it was truly a project that changed me, and I had to stop a little bit and reset. And the Living Among Us Left Behind was the project that followed that one. So it came three years after. So it was definitely important.
It is truly an honor to speak with you, Mario, because you are what I call a true photojournalist, right? So we online it's full of people that are arguing back and forth about different cameras and lenses and software and techniques and all that, and then there are very few photographers that are actually out there doing what this gear was designed to do, and that is to tell stories and present them to other people. So congratulations on that. Thank you. Thank you so much for that. So what gear, speaking of gear, what do you tend to take with you? What's the bag that you'll take with you when you're on one of these adventures or one of these documentary missions?
Well, I try to be as discreet as possible. All my projects since the beginning were shot with Fujifilm cameras. I mean, X-Pro 1, X-Pro 2, and now the X-Pro 3. So, I mean, when I documented the Talibans, I was doing it with the X-Pro 1. And if I had the X-Pro 2 or the X-Pro 3, it will help a lot because now it's completely silent. And the X-Pro 1 wasn't. So, I mean, I was not allowed to enter this school, so it was a lot of danger involved in documenting that reality, and the cameras will help me a lot. So, but to be honest, I don't think too much about the gear. I photograph always with 3 fixed lenses, the 18, the 23 and the 35, which means that it's 27, 35, and 50 millimeter. And that's it. I don't use any more gear. I mean, I try to be, I mean, like I said, the most discreet person in the room because I'm already with the camera. So the highlight is easily on me. So, and actually, the cameras that I've been using, the X-Pro series, is very resistant. I mean, I've been through a lot in these projects, and they never broke down, so that's enough for me.
That's great. That's great. Yeah, it's a tank, and the discretion is the magic part, I think, for a lot of people with these mirrorless cameras. Just being able to move around without the clunk, and waving your hand. Hey, I'm a photographer.
Now, exactly. And now the X-Pro 3 doesn't even have a viewfinder on the back, so it's even more discreet than ever. So. It's a good tool for me, for sure. I mean, the camera is just a tool, so I want to be discreet. My work needs to be discreet. I don't want to be too intrusive. I need to get access, so I find it to be almost the perfect gear for me. So very simple.
That's perfect. That's perfect. Well, I want to wrap it up with, I always try to take a look forward into the future and see, based on what you've learned and where your mindset is right now, what does the future look like for Mario? What kind of projects are you working on, and what kind do you hope to work on?
I mean, it takes a lot of time to me to get involved to another project. For example, I spend a lot of time researching. I spent a little bit time photographing, and then I spend a lot of time communicating. For example, with Living Among Us Left Behind, it was awarded last year. We created the book last year, and I'm still showing the work everywhere I can.
Yeah.
So, for example, the photo that was awarded in the World Press photo of a child in a mattress surrounded by trash, just for you to have an idea of what I want to do in the future. For example, in that photo, every time you see an exhibition, if you want to see the photograph a little bit closer, you have to go through a floor full of trash, you know.
Yeah.
And so you have to face the problem to see the photo. And actually, the cover of the book was made of trash.
Oh, really?
Yeah, yeah. So 160 kilograms of trash to produce every cover. So what I want to do in the future, for sure, is to dedicate myself to stories that are hidden or ignored. That's my goal, and I want to use photography in the best way possible. I consider myself a photojournalist, of course, but my goal is not to see my work published in newspapers or magazines. I want to use photography in a more proactive way, you know. So I'm really interested in using photography in different actions. So for now, for example, I want to paste up many of the photos that I took in this project and show in the streets in many places, including Manila, to show to people that this problem can no longer be ignored. But for now, I'm trying to finish a project that I started a few years ago in Portugal called The Roof. The Roof Project.
Okay.
Yeah, the Roof Project, and that project is about people that are surviving in abandoned places in Lisbon. That project started when we were facing a serious financial crisis, and I don't know really why the economic crisis in Portugal was not taken seriously outside Portugal in the media, because of Greece, maybe because they had those violent demonstrations, and it was a very severe crisis, of course. But in Portugal, it was really difficult too. So I mean, it was severe too, and we are still suffering the consequences of that. Yeah. So now people are still living in abandoned places. Nobody sees them, and we were a country in a very bad shape economically a few years ago. Now we are the good example of Europe, with a lot of tourism and so on. And now Portuguese people still battle to find a place they can afford in the city. So it's a very hidden story for us Portuguese. And I want to concentrate myself on that until the end of the year. But for sure that in 2021 I will do a new project outside Portugal. I wish I could do more, but I really need time to rest my head and to concentrate myself on this right now. Living Among Us Left Behind has taken a lot of me, and like I said, I do a lot of research. I spend most of my time not photographing. So, and the photography part comes later and naturally. And I'm always anxious to it, but it takes a lot of research, a lot of study, and photography is more than just photography itself. So
it is. It's an art, a science, and psychology. It's preparation and planning and all that. That's amazing. What about the one thing I wanted to ask you before I let you go was just the looking at these photos and the photos around the river and all that. There's you're putting yourself in harm's way in a lot of the times. And that's, part of the job of being a photojournalist, obviously, is to be where the photos are. But what precautions do you take to ensure that you don't get sick or you do leave with your gear, How does that work?
I mean, to be completely honest, I don't overthink it. I mean,
yeah, good.
I mean, if I did it, I think I wouldn't be able to do what I do.
Yeah.
I mean, for example, in Senegal, I knew for sure that every day I was putting my life on the line. I mean, I knew that. I wasn't a father back then. I'm not sure if I will do it again now. But for example, on Living Among Us Left Behind, the first time that I went to the river and I walked on top of the trash, and then I saw the people going to their lives so naturally. I was really shocked. I was looking at my feet and I couldn't see them because it was so many trash. But at the same time, you can feel the water. It's a very strange feeling. And when I got to the place where I was sleeping, a very comfortable hotel, when I looked to my boots and my gear and my clothing, it was full of germs. And I mean, it's I don't think too much about those things because I mean it's part of the job. But I mean, when I return to my country, I try to know if everything is okay.
Yeah,
that's it.
Absolutely, that's good. That's a good way to, because otherwise you'd overthink it, and
Yeah. And to be honest, I have to live with these people, so I spend a lot of times in these places. I picked up trash with them many times. That's the only way to cover these issues. Otherwise, I would be contributing to a very superficial way of portraying that reality. So that's the opposite of what I want to do. So I need to be there. I need to feel what they feel. Of course, I will not feel what they feel because I'm more lucky than them, I guess. I mean,
but in order to get the story and tell their story, you have to be embedded and
for sure,
and feel it.
That's very, very important. I mean, and if you want to do this kind of job, you have to spend time on it.
Yeah.
I mean, there's no other way to do it. Sometimes I see many powerful photography work, but I don't see many time put into it, and I guess that can make a difference. I mean, that's why I'm a photojournalist, but I'm not concerning about newspapers and magazines because they don't give us the conditions anymore. So I'm trying to do this by myself with my own conditions, and to do the best I can, and then to communicate the best I can. So I prefer to do it that way.
Fantastic. Mario Cruz, thank you for coming on. I appreciate your time.
Thank you so much. Thank you for this opportunity.
If people want to reach out to you and connect with you, what's the best way for them to start a dialogue?
Yeah, it's very easy to find me on my website or Instagram. I'm not a very present guy in social media, but I reply to everything that people send me. So it's very easy. MarioCruz.com. It's very easy.
Yeah. And you've got I'm showing the contact form there now.
Yeah.
So you've got a contact form up there. Just go to MarioCruz.com/contact and reach out. Very good.
Very easy.
All right, Mario, thanks again for coming on.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you, sir. Thank you again.
You're welcome. Very welcome. And best of luck in your next adventure.
Yeah, wish you the best, man. Thank you.